All right, welcome to Expert Voices with Jeff Evans. That's me. And this show is sponsored by J. Vincent Creative at jvincentcreative.com. Today with me is Ben Musgrove of the Bettis Musgrove Personal Injury Law Firm. Ben, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, very good. Well, Ben is not only somebody that I know, but he is a client and somebody that I very much trust in this field. So I thought today would be a great opportunity to bring you on the show and discuss your journey into personal injury law.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Good. So let's start off kind of with the backstory. How did you even get into this?
Yeah, so originally didn't want to be a lawyer, wanted to be a doctor. Got a bachelor's degree in biology at West Georgia, and then went and got a master's degree in biomedical science, thinking I would go to med school. That didn't work out. So decided to become a lawyer. Wanted to do medical malpractice defense. Couldn't find a job doing that when I came out of law school, but I got hired by a small firm in Atlanta that did personal injury, and had no intentions on being a personal injury lawyer. But once I got involved with it and got to know my clients and work on their cases a little bit, I just fell in love with it, and I've been doing it now for 11 years.
So I don't know a whole lot about the law school process, being a marketer, but do you learn about how to take care of personal injury cases in law school?
Yes and no. So, I mean, law school is more theory than it is practice, right? I mean, they teach you the theory behind law. So you take torts, for example, which is where personal injury comes from, negligence, essentially. And they teach you about negligence and what the different types of negligence are and how to handle that, but they don't tell you how to handle a personal injury case. So coming out, all I knew about personal injury was what you see on TV and movies and what people say about personal injury lawyers, which is why I didn't want to do it initially. But no education on personal injury per se. Okay.
So then when you took this position, could you name the firm?
Yeah, it's McConnell and Sneed. They don't exist anymore.
Oh, okay.
Steve McConnell's on his own now with McConnell Law. So
Okay, great.
Great guys.
So did they take you under their wing then and teach you the process of doing personal injury law?
Yeah, from the very start. So they knew I had the medical background, which is very helpful in personal injury because we read a lot of medical records. So I already understood the terminology for the most part. But they had to teach me the process for the legal side of it. So anything from intake with a client to gathering medical records and other evidence, all the way through drafting demand letters and even filing lawsuits up to trial. So
wow.
They had to teach me all of it.
Wow, okay. And then how long of a process was this before you were able to kind of practice on your own?
Yeah, so I was with them for right at 4 years. I thought I had my feet under me pretty good. Looking back, I probably needed another year or two. But I had enough of a foundation that I was comfortable stepping out. I generated my own book of business, so to speak. My own clients would come in. And I told my wife, she was actually on maternity leave with our first child at the time. And I said, hey, I think I'm going to quit and start my own firm. And she was not really thrilled at first. But she supported me 100%.
Yeah.
Off we went.
Okay. And that was your original firm?
Yeah, the Musgrove Law Firm. Yeah, I was there, started in 2016, so about 7 years as a solo practitioner.
Okay. How was it being a solo practitioner?
I mean, it was awesome. I've always wanted to be my own boss, so that part was just fantastic. Just the flexibility and scheduling and every other aspect. Really, the main thing that made me want to do it was when we had our first child. Driving to Atlanta every day, I was getting to see her for maybe 30 minutes. And, family's important, and I wanted to be more of a part of her life. So I had to break that cycle a little bit. And that's what encouraged me to go do the law firm. But being a solo, it was awesome, but also very, very stressful at the same time. So I had no experience running a business. At the time, it was just me. And then eventually I hired a paralegal and another paralegal and had to learn how to be a boss and do the bookkeeping and the payroll and everything else. And it was just a headache. But at the same time, I learned a lot and I grew a lot as a person doing it. So I really enjoyed being solo.
How were you able to bring on clientele at that point in time? Were you marketing it somehow?
I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that. So starting out, I'm originally from Carrollton, Georgia, moved to Cumming in 2013, right after law school. So in 2016, when I opened the firm, we'd been here 3 years. I didn't know hardly anybody. I had to sort of develop a reputation in the community. So most of my cases at the time were coming from Carrollton and other lawyers that I knew in the Atlanta area that would send me work. And then marketing-wise, I mean, I did my own social media marketing. And I think you know me enough to know now that I'm not a very techie guy. I don't do much on social media in general. And I look back at like the videos and stuff that I was doing, and it's just absolutely cringeworthy. I mean, just awful, awful stuff. But I tried, and I didn't generate anything from it, but I thought I had to have some sort of presence. turns out I was probably doing it the wrong way.
Any way is better than no way. That's the way I look at it. So as long as you're doing something, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, I think you're right. And in our world too, I mean, my dad always told me this growing up, and it stands true. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And in at least the personal injury world, that resonates fully. It's, you know other lawyers who don't do personal injury, and they become some of your best referral sources because they get calls from their buddies and their friends and families and things like that. And they're like, I don't know how to do that, but call Ben. And so you develop those relationships, and that marketing is priceless.
Yeah.
And still to this day, that's probably our greatest source of referrals is just word of mouth from other lawyers and friends and family members, obviously. But developing those relationships, doing that marketing was really huge.
Yeah, I mean, two things there. Number one, I think that people were able to get to know you a little bit from those videos. Yeah. Even if you fumbled through them or anything like that, there's something about looking at somebody and them not knowing that you're looking at them, right, like a video is, and getting to hear their voice and sense their passion and what they do, that I think really, really resonates with somebody that's really trying to find the right fit.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can probably still find it on the Facebook page. You go back and look at my first live video. I mean, I was sweating, red, nervous, like talking to a phone, but felt like there were 1,000 people staring at me, and it was just terrible. Like, I need to go delete it probably.
I think you're getting red now just talking about it.
And I call my wife and go, hey, what'd you think about that? She's like, yeah, that was great. Good job.
All right, so let's get into some of the actual questions that I did do ahead of time because, I try to prepare. Not as well as he prepares, but I did prepare some. So what were some of the most significant hurdles that you faced while establishing your firm in such a competitive market? And give me some anecdotes on how you were able to overcome
them. So we kind of touched on a couple of them already. Yeah. I mean, personal injury in general is very saturated. I mean, you see it, you're inundated with it every day on television and on social media, et cetera. But
constantly.
I mean, you get these huge mass marketers, and you have just a ton of attorneys. You got a lot that practice just personal injury like I do. That's all we do. But then you've got a ton that will take a personal injury case even though they don't do it. And that's really the biggest, I would say, competition is just your family law attorney that does divorces that's willing to take a personal injury case because there's a decent upside, even if you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
So you got to address that hurdle. I would say, like I talked about earlier, being new to the county and not knowing anyone, not having any connections really in the community, that was a huge hurdle. So I had to go develop that reputation, so to speak, get to know some of the local attorneys, get to know just people in the community in general, get involved with the church, get involved with my kids' school, whatever, and just get to know folks. And now, we've been here for a pretty good while. I feel like I've done that. I've got the reputation that I needed. So I think that was hurdle number one, and obviously still trying to build on that. The second biggest hurdle I had, I would say, was just being able to say no. So coming out of the solo, I was terrified I was going to go hungry. So if somebody would call me, even if it wasn't personal injury related, I would dabble and say, yeah, I can probably, it's a contractor, it's a whatever the case may be, a speeding ticket. Yeah, I can try to help you with that. And you end up spending more time on those cases than you do in personal injury cases.
Correct.
And they're much less lucrative.
Yeah.
So I had to learn that it's okay to say no, that I'm going to make the money if I focus on what I'm doing, hone in my craft, say no is okay. And then the third one, which we kind of touched on, was technology and social media. I mean, I'm not a techie guy. I use Microsoft Word, and that's about it. So I had to learn how to be a business owner and implement these strategies and learn how to use technology. And what I learned is that I shouldn't be doing that. I need to focus on the law and let other people handle that stuff for me.
Yeah. Can you pinpoint any pivotal moments within the last 5-6 years of your career that really kind of changed the game for you and your firm?
Yeah, I mean, so one is hiring you, obviously, to help with marketing.
Thank you.
I mean, it really is. It's been tremendous just to have that presence and take that away from me, so I'm not having to do these stupid live videos.
Well, you're still doing them.
I'm not embarrassing myself in front of myself.
No, not anymore.
So yeah, outsourcing that, and we've got another company that handles we do monthly email blasts and updates and things, and they handle that, and it takes the stress off of me to have to come up with content, have to put it out there and spend hours, creating whatever it is to put it out there, whether it works or not. With you or with the other company, I just say, yeah, go, and you guys run with it, and it works out beautifully.
Delegation.
Yeah, delegation is huge.
Absolutely.
And delegation internally, too. I mean, it's things like sending out letters. I don't need to spend my time actually going and using the postage machine to put the stamp on it and printing the letters and things like that. I've got paralegals that can help me with that, assistants that can help me with that. So just learning to say, hey, here, take this and print this for me, bring it to me, and then I sign it. That way I can focus on actually what's making the firm money.
So I would assume from a financial perspective, there was definitely, there must have been some moments, like some nervous moments where you're like, I know I have to delegate. I know I have to spend this money, but then that's not money that I'm making. And so like, talk me through that process, like your mindset there, because you did come out on the other side. Sure. Like you did hire the right people. Yep. You, not just me, but like you hired you have a great paralegal and so on and so forth. So a great partner, which we'll obviously talk about here in a moment. So, talk about that.
Yes. I mean, I remember it specifically. I got to the point, I had 57 cases, and I had 22 of those cases in litigation.
Whoa.
And as a solo, I mean, I don't want to say that's malpractice and implicate myself there, but I mean, I was dangerously close to just not being able to handle it.
Sure.
But it's like you said, if I was to hire someone like a paralegal or an assistant, they're not necessarily making me money. So that's my income that I'm giving to them, essentially to take it off my shoulders. And I talked to my wife about it, and we thought about it for a long time, and I finally said, look, it's something I have to do. I'm going to end up just driving myself into the ground. And I've maximum bandwidth. So I went out and interviewed several people, hired a young lady to help me, and she just took a lot of that stress away. I mean, little things like helping me file pleadings, helping me request medical records, putting things into, at the time, it was pretty archaic. I was just using an external hard drive. I didn't have like a cloud or anything. So, I mean, helping me keep that organized, helping me keep my calendar organized. It was huge. And from there, I was able to grow tremendously. She ended up having a baby and didn't come back to work, and I had to hire somebody else. But it
happens.
It was great while it lasted with her, and now I've got my staff is just phenomenal.
Well, let's touch on that staff. Well, specifically the partner. So, Bettis Musgrove is not your name.
No, I'm the Musgrove of Bettis Musgrove.
So, talk to us about how you met Spencer and how that partnership came to be.
So, I met Spencer really through his dad and through some other lawyers here in town. His dad is a staple in the community. He's been here forever. Spencer's whole family, they're like 5th or 6th generation Forsyth County people. But
wow.
He was in law school at the time that I met his dad. And then after he graduated law school, he went to Afghanistan, I believe, to fight. And then he had already taken the bar, passed the bar. So he was over there doing his duty in the military and then came back. And that's when I was first introduced to him. Went to lunch and just struck up a friendship. I mean, it was obvious that we had a connection from the beginning, very like-minded individuals. Knew that he was doing good things. I mean, obviously very community-focused, a selfless type person. I try to be that way. I'm not nearly as good at it as he is, but try my best. So we just became friends, and we'd have lunch from time to time, go to Braves games, that type of thing. And then early last year, he called me. He was working with his dad at the time. His dad's getting ready to retire, and he's like, hey, I've got to start making plans for the future. What would you think about partnering up? And I'd never really considered it, but I'd also hit another point, kind of like when I had to hire the paralegal, where I was at maximum capacity. So it was my paralegal, Crystal, and me, and we could not take another case. And I started thinking about ways to grow and ways to expand, and I didn't know the right direction to go in to do that. And then he hit me with this idea, and so I started taking it seriously and looking into it. We started playing with numbers and just looking at what each could bring to the table. And last May, we decided to make it a reality and launch Bettis Musgrove. And so far, it's just been amazing.
So did you take the client load that you had at that time and give some to him, or was it, well, this is me for now, and then we'll bring in for you, and like kind of how did that work out?
So he had his own clientele going at the time, obviously, and I did too. So when we came together, we sat down with our paralegals and we just kind of went through the whole list, and this is who's taking what and doing what, and sort of delegated out what needed to happen. And it was pretty seamless, really.
Okay.
For the most part, all of my clients that I brought over, I kept with me. He kept working with his, and now we brought in enough as a group that we've kind of intertwined.
Okay. Working relationship, great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's a pillar of salt.
He is. He's in Arizona right now doing military training. So, it doesn't stop. He's enjoying
some of that training, I think, is what he's doing. So that's good. All right. So that was kind of like the business journey, how you kind of came into your own, how you ended up with your partner. So let's talk about some actual expert insights. Okay. So when people watch these types of shows, as you're well aware of because you have your own show,
Right.
You are a veteran in this, people love to hear these advice. I mean, let's be honest, it's free advice, which when you're a lawyer, I mean, you specifically work pro bono, right? But other attorneys and such, they charge $300, $400, $500 an hour.
I shouldn't say I work pro bono. I work on a contingency fee.
Contingency fee. See, I'm a marketer, not a lawyer.
Yeah, you don't know me until I win.
There you go. So let's talk through some of these things. Yeah. So in your experience, what are some of the key factors in maintaining trust and integrity in your client relationships, especially in cases as sensitive as personal injury?
Yeah, honestly, I think it boils down to just communication. I've just learned through doing this long enough that people want to know what you're doing when you're doing it, so they don't want you to go a month or 2 months without contacting them. I try to stay in constant contact, and I feel like so long as I do that, the trust is just there. I mean, they automatically trust me. They think I've got their best interest in heart. And it's not even an update on the case necessarily. It's just a text. How you doing? Or if I'm representing somebody's son, how's your son doing? Any issues that you think we need to address? Treatment going okay? Is there anything that we can do to make your life easier? That type of thing. And they seem to just eat it up. When you forget to call somebody for a couple of weeks, you get the phone calls like, hey, I hadn't heard from you in a while. And it's like, oh, and you can feel that trust slip. So I think communication is key.
Yeah.
So long as you're staying in touch, they're comfortable.
I have found that in my own business as well, that people want to know you care.
Yeah. And,
in my business, a lot of it can be results based, client getting more clients, acquisition, so like, but as long as you're communicating with them on a weekly, sometimes daily basis, depending upon what you're doing, the more that they seem to just be appreciative of you as a whole.
Sure.
And it's less on these leads are garbage, that kind of stuff, right?
Well, and in our case too, I mean, we're dealing with everybody that we're working with has been hurt. And so they're dealing with something they didn't want to be dealing with to begin with, something that's very uncomfortable for them. A lot of them are very uncomfortable with the legal process in general. And they're potentially going to be getting a decent check at the end, and I'm going to be getting a decent check because of that. So they want to know that they're a priority, and I don't fault them for that. So I try to make everybody a priority.
So what do you say to the person that they've been injured, they don't want to sue anybody, they feel like it's icky? I mean, it's a very common question.
Sure.
So, but I want it answered on my show too. Yeah. So what do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird situation, especially in the South. I feel like more people, conservative people in the South, don't want to sue people. And what I tell folks is that chances are we don't have to sue them. So that's why we have insurance. You've got these insurance companies that are involved, and more often than not, we can just get in touch with the insurance company, explain to them what happened, what your injuries are, what you had to do to get better. And I don't know the exact statistics, but I'd say 90+% of those cases just go away. You get a check without ever filing a lawsuit. Now, you filed a claim against that person, and obviously that affects their insurance record, but you're not taking their money personally.
Would you say that you spend a lot of time basically protecting your clients from the insurance companies?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about multi-billion-dollar corporations, and I don't ever get mad at the insurance companies. I mean, they're there to make a profit just like I am, right? So they want to pay my clients as little as possible to keep as much of their money as they can. My job is to help my clients jump through the hurdles that they don't know how to jump through by themselves. So whether it's just making phone calls to the adjusters or explaining the legal theories that we're going to present, as a layman, you have no idea you know what negligence is, but you don't know the different aspects of negligence that we can go down.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody was drunk and there's punitive damages involved. So, you're going to punish that person for being drunk when they hit you. Most laymen don't understand that. So that's what we offer, is we sort of play that intermediary, if you want to call it, between the insurance company and the client to advocate for the client so they're not abused by the big insurance companies. Okay.
Yeah. Could you delve into how you handle your cases, like a strategy?
Yeah. So I guess from a legal strategy, every case is different in some component. Procedurally, they're all pretty similar.
Right.
The client comes in, whatever the case may be, sends a message through one of the podcast episodes, and just says, hey, I'm interested in talking to you guys about this. So we'll bring them in, or oftentimes we'll go to their house if they're too hurt to drive or whatever the case may be. Maybe they're elderly. We'll go to the house and we'll sit down at the kitchen table and just say, okay, tell us what happened. look at all the documents that they have, if they have any. Just do the whole intake process and get as much information up front as we can. And then if they hire us, we go into the evidence gathering phase. So we go get police reports and videos and photographs, witness statements, whatever we can. All the cars nowadays have computers. We can hire experts to go download those computers, see what the at-fault driver might have been doing.
Wow.
Were they speeding? Were they braking too hard? Did they brake at all? There's a lot of information you can get off of the computer. Wow. A lot of people have dash cams now. So you go get those dash cams, and that tells the story as good as you want it to be told.
Yeah.
So you do the evidence gathering, and you also make sure that your client is going to get treatment. I can't tell you how many people get hurt, and they're like, yeah, my back's killing me, and they just deal with it. Rub a little Icy Hot on there, take some Advil, hope it goes away, and 3-4 weeks later, it's getting worse.
Yeah.
It hadn't improved at all. And by then, they've created a gap, which insurance companies just freak out about. Well, clearly it wasn't hurting that bad, or you would have gone to the doctor. Instead, you waited 4 weeks. And it can really kill a case.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure they're going to get the treatment. Go see a professional and let them diagnose you. Maybe it's just whiplash. Maybe they give you some anti-inflammatories, do a little bit of stretching, it goes away. Maybe you herniated a disc. Maybe they got to go in and shave that disc or fuse your spine. You never know, but unless you have that advocate telling you where you need to go to get that treatment, you might not do it otherwise. So that's kind of the next step. Make sure the clients get what they need. And sometimes they don't need it. And we'll just say, hey, you're good. You don't need this. And then after that, we start formulating more of the strategy on how we're going to attack the case, the ask. What are we going to ask the insurance company for? We draft our demand letter. We go through it with the client. This is why we're saying what we're saying. And hopefully the demand works. We're able to settle it pretty quickly, get them a check. If not, then we file a lawsuit, and that's a completely different strategy, where we have to go in and figure out, what cards we're going to show, when we're going to show them, what our theories are going to be, sort of navigate the litigation process, discovery, and maybe get it to a mediation or maybe take it to a jury trial.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, that can vary, but the beginning intake process is pretty similar.
So you mentioned this briefly on your last show, but I want to get into this a little bit as well. There are cases that you do not take.
Right.
Kind of go through some of that there.
I mean, I don't take anything that doesn't have an injury component to it,
well,
for starters. But within the injury world, still there are things that I don't do, like dog bites. I've never done a dog bite. I wouldn't know where to begin with a dog bite. I've got friends that do dog bites.
Sure.
So if you call me one of those, I'm going to send you over to a buddy of mine that does dog bites and let them represent you. Med mal. We don't get into the serious medical malpractice cases. A lot of that is funding related. I mean, med mal is just very expensive to try, and you stand the chance of losing a lot of money if you're not successful. Mm-hmm. And you need these experts, and you need people who understand med mal specifically. So you want to go find a lawyer who does just medical malpractice. I think you'll find most med mal lawyers don't handle car wrecks. They're just medical malpractice lawyers.
Yes.
So it's good. I've got several of those in the book. We get one of those come in, I'll connect you with somebody and make sure you're taken care of by the best person. But those are really the only two that stand out as I just will not take.
And people that don't tell you the full truth.
Well, yeah. So once you hire me, I tell people I've only had to fire 2 clients in my entire career. But a big thing for me is if you don't tell me the truth, then I can't represent you.
Right.
If I find out you're lying, then you need to find another attorney. We don't tell lies here.
Yeah. And that's because it could literally cost the case.
Completely.
Yeah. And waste your time dramatically.
You can kill the case. You could get sanctions issued against you by the court.
Wow.
I mean, there are a lot of things that come from lying. So
really,
you don't want to do that.
No, you don't. All right. Let's move on to the advice segment.
Okay.
So for aspiring lawyers or entrepreneurs watching this, what foundational skills do you believe were crucial for success in the legal field, particularly in personal injury law?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think it probably applies to all law, but especially personal injury is just get the experience. Make sure you get hands-on. So a lot of young lawyers, when they go to work for a law firm, they're tasked with handling sort of the mundane day-to-day medical record requests, medical summaries, that type of stuff. Ask to be more involved. Get in there, get in front of a client, actually meet the person and understand what they're going through and learn the process. Like we talked about, law school teaches you theory, but it doesn't teach you practice. And really the only way you could learn to practice is by just putting yourself in that position. So you've got to do things that make you uncomfortable. You may not know how to do it, and you just got to feel your way through it. But go do that uncomfortable thing, do the thing that's hard, and you come out better because of it. And then probably the biggest thing is just try cases. So many attorneys are gun shy. They don't want to get in front of a jury. And it's intimidating. I mean, every time I do it, I still to this day get nervous. I mean, you're talking to 12 strangers who don't want to be there in front of you. and you've got to convince them to write you a big check. It's daunting, but go try the cases, get the experience. And if you're not comfortable trying the case, send the case to somebody who is comfortable trying it.
Okay. Because comfort and confidence and passion in what you do, you have to have that. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
Sure. Yeah. Or you're not going to get the results that you could if you had that passion.
Mm-hmm.
So sure, you can take personal injury cases and never try one of them to a jury trial, and you'll make money, and your clients are going to get some money. But if you have that experience and you know the buttons to push, you can make those numbers much bigger.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That makes sense. All right, so reflecting on your career, if you could offer one piece of advice to your younger self, and you're already young, just starting out in law, what would it be?
I think a lot of it is just trust your instincts. Things are going to come up. It never fails. There are things that come up that make you question your moral compass. Stick to your moral compass. Trust your instincts. Trust your gut. If something doesn't feel right, it's not right. Go a different direction. And I think confidence is huge. I think my wife would tell you I don't struggle with confidence. I've always been very confident in myself and a very driven person. If I say I'm going to do it, then I'm going to do it. But I needed that push to make me want to go do it.
Okay.
I needed that push to really get out there and get uncomfortable. And so, don't be afraid to be uncomfortable, I think is huge. And then the other one is make sure that you get to know the experts in your field. So it took me a couple of years to realize this. I didn't want people trying to poach my cases or think I was trying to poach their cases, so I wouldn't get too involved with other personal injury lawyers. But we've got some absolute just phenoms that live here in Georgia. I mean, they're absolutely game changers in the personal injury world, and I've allowed myself to get to know them. And not hey, come help me with this case, or what do you think about this, but just go watch them, go to lunch with them, go to all the lunches you can, take as many people to lunch as you possibly can, or dinner, or just go get a coffee, whatever the case may be, and just learn from them. When they have a jury trial, go sit in and watch them try that case, pick up on little tips and tricks that they do to make yourself better. And I think once you get to know these guys or girls and you see how they operate, that you become a better lawyer for it. So get out there and get that experience as well.
Yeah, networking.
Yeah,
I mean, it's huge.
This is huge.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I even started the show to begin with, or did my previous show, was just the opportunity to speak to business owners and ask questions that I want to know. Like, I want to know. Like, these aren't like questions like just to have. I really want to know.
Yeah.
Because I love business. I love all aspects of business, and I just want to know things that I just don't know.
And Spencer and I talked about it when we got started. So I had I don't know if you call it a philosophy, but once I embraced this idea of getting to know these experts in my field, I also wanted to get to know other lawyers as well.
Sure.
So it's a huge referral source. So I would try to take a different lawyer to lunch every week. And I did that for a long time. I pretty much saturated Forsyth County and started going outside of that. But, getting to know those people and just learning who they are and what they do, a rising tide lifts all ships, right? So I can refer cases to them. They can send it to me. And this is just a beautiful relationship. But networking is massive.
Yeah, you come from a place of abundance, which is wonderful. You have to these days. All right, so kind of a negative question, if you will.
Sure.
But I think it's incredibly important because your mindset plays a huge part in everything that you do in life, period, especially in business, especially in law, and especially when you're dealing with really tough situations. I mean, can you talk on, like, how do you handle some of these incredibly depressing cases and things that are just so devastating? How do you go home? You have a house full of kids and and a wife. How do you manage that?
Surprisingly well, and I don't know that I have any tips or tricks for it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. On the last episode, I think it was, we talked about, or maybe 2 episodes ago, allowing yourself to walk a mile in your client's shoes. So I think that's imperative. You've got to do that. You've got to get on the ground with them and understand what they're going through. Whether it's loss of a family member, whether it's a back injury, a broken leg, whatever the case is, maybe they're a child athlete and they can't play sports anymore. You need to be able to understand what it is they're dealing with so that you can properly advocate for them. But in doing that, you put a lot of weight on your shoulders as well, because now you're living that life through them, and it's a lot of stress. I mean, I do wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, oftentimes worried about something, whether not even necessarily what's going on in the case, but just how they're doing. We just finished a case this past week, the most catastrophic case of my career, the worst injuries I've seen outside of a death, and it's been going on for 18 months, 16 months.
Wow.
For those 16 months, every day I thought about how these people were doing.
Yeah.
We were able to get them a good result, but it'll never be enough. And so battling that, how are you okay with getting them a number that you know is the most you could ever possibly get, but it's never going to even scratch the surface of what they actually need? It's tough. It really is. I rely on my wife a lot. I rely on my faith a lot. And I do have 4 kids who take my mind off of it pretty easily. I mean, they're a lot of work. So you get home, you don't have time to be a lawyer. You got to go be a dad, and that helps. But then when they go to bed, the wheels start turning again.
What's the age ranges of your children?
Oldest is 7, twins that are 5, and a baby that'll be 1 in 2 weeks.
You have 5-year-old twins. Mm-hmm. God bless you, brother. Mm-hmm. I have 2, and my 6-year-old's a Spitfire, so she takes up all the energy as it is.
Yes. I mean, the oldest and the youngest are pretty easy. The twins we call them tornadoes. I mean, those kids, they can tear something apart.
All girls, right?
All girls. Yep. Got cheerleading today. I'll be at the gym for cheerleading from 4 to 7. So
if anybody wants to show up, and he'll be happy to answer questions. All right. So we're coming to the end of the show, so I want to do some quick fire questions.
Okay.
Corny crap that I absolutely love to ask. That way, people can get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right, we'll go fast. Coffee or tea in the morning?
Coffee, and lots of it.
All right, right on. What's the last book you read?
All right, so the last book that I read was A Call for Christ by Lee Strobel. He was an atheist journalist / lawyer. Did this. It's a really cool book.
Yeah.
I approached Christ from a legal perspective and loved it. Currently reading Jack Carr's 6th book. I can't remember it, Only the Dead. And he's got this series about a guy named James Reese, Terminal List, that you can watch on Amazon, is where it came from. Phenomenal fiction series. So I try to dabble in fiction and nonfiction if I can.
That's very smart.
That also takes my mind off of what I do.
Yeah, it would. All right, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
So I think that, number one hitter on everybody's list ought to be Jesus.
Yeah.
If I'm going to go outside of that, maybe Daniel Boone.
Daniel Boone?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I like it. Why? Why Daniel Boone?
Just, back before we had any of this, frontiersman, congressman, kind of did it all. Just
a sweet hat.
Yeah, went through the Cumberland Gap, kind of helped establish the West. So.
That's true. I know the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask it for everybody watching. What's your go-to activity to unwind after a stressful day?
I ride my bike.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yes,
I love riding my bike. I also run a lot, and I hate running.
Yeah, running sucks.
Yeah, it's awful.
I'll take the bike any day. All right, favorite vacation spot you've been to?
I love to snow ski, Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Hands down, best resort I've ever been to. Outside of that, I would say Maine, Bar Harbor, Maine. That's a good
lobster
one.
rolls?
Lobster rolls.
Dude.
Cadillac Mountain. It's beautiful.
Side note, there's a very large difference between lobster that you get in the South and lobster you get in the Northeast.
No comparison.
No comparison.
And the Caribbean, for that matter, is completely different.
I would imagine. All right, what's a skill or hobby you've picked up recently?
So running triathlons. I'll run my 3rd half Ironman May 19th.
Well,
so that is my only hobby now because it takes up all of my time.
I'll give you one more skill. You now are an expert at doing podcasts.
Expert at podcasts. All right,
That's right.
I'll take it.
What was your first job ever?
I cut grass in high school for neighbors. I don't know if that counts. My first real job with a W-2, I was a valet for nightclubs in Buckhead.
Nice.
Yeah.
They're all gone now.
They're all gone. Every one of them I worked at is gone.
How funny.
Yeah.
What movie can you watch over and over again?
A lot of them. Big John Candy fan, so probably Great Outdoors and Summer Vacation.
Classics.
Or Wedding Crashers. I guess you're going to go a little more modern.
That's definitely more modern.
20 years ago, more modern.
What's one item you can't live without?
My truck.
Okay. That's true. I now have to buy one to fit in around here. Do you have a favorite quote or mantra that you live by?
Yeah. To whom much is given, much more is required. So it comes out of Luke originally. JFK said it, and then I had a fraternity brother that passed away, and that was kind of his thing. So that's my deal.
I love that quote.
Yeah.
All right, Ben. Well, it's great to talk to you. Where can people find you? Whether that's YouTube or your website or anything.
Yeah, you find me at bettismusgrove.com. On Facebook and Instagram at Bettis Musgrove. Give me a jingle.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Till next time, Jeff Evans with Expert Voices.